Webinar has started. Awesome. Right. So what we've learned from Sharmadean is that for our next webinar, we will have some music and a lovely screen to allow people to take their seats and join us, which seems to be happening really quickly at the moment. Okay. I think we should start. So hello, I'm Alexia Inge, co-founder of Cult Beauty, and welcome to the last of our skincare sessions of the day. In this session, the panel and I are going to be polishing off our crystal balls and sharing our skincare and well-being predictions for 22. Now to introduce you to our beauty savants. First of all, we have Sharmadean Reid, MBE. Hello, founder and CEO of Beauty Stack, mentor and all-round beauty ledge. Sharmadean was formerly a brand consultant before launching her own hugely successful nail bar, which I'm sure you've all heard of, called Wild London. In 2018, she founded Beauty Stack, which uses social networking to generate bookings for independent business owners. In 2020, this evolved into The Stack, an intelligent, female-focused online media outlet and membership platform. Her mission has always been to use tech to economically empower women in beauty and wellness industries. And I think you're doing bloody brilliantly with that mission. Welcome, welcome, Sharmadean.
Thank you for having me. Still trying.
I mean, it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? It really is. So now we have Antonia Baldum. Hello, hello. Who leads beauty partnerships at TikTok, where she oversees the strategic direction and commercial growth of the beauty vertical. She works very closely with beauty brands to successfully navigate this exciting player in the content space. Prior to joining TikTok, Antonia worked the other side of the publishing fence at Condé Nast and the Stylist Group, which has given her a panoramic view on what gets people excited in beauty. So hello, thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And then Mark Curry. He's a self-confessed mad scientist who is currently in his library, a virologist by trade who was a science teacher before moving into commercial roles at Mars and then Boots, where he met his Inkey co-founder Colette. In 2017, the Inkey List was founded on the value that knowledge is power, and that shouldn't be price excluding. Mark is a lightning rod for both industry innovation and consumer needs, and occasionally has the hairstyle to prove it.
Had the same hairstyle since 1990 something. So yeah, I'd concur. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all.
So to kick off, I just wanted to start and do an overview of what I'm seeing in the beauty sphere right now, as to get the conversation going. Today, the beauty industry feels a bit like a freight train that's run off its tracks, but still moving inexplicably at huge speed. As a collective, we finally got the eco memo from the big boss. Dear humans, sort your waste out or you're fired, the earth. The more positive movement is happening now. And this is inspiring a macro trend that I call the wellniverse, which is the dawning realization that the interconnectivity that governs the health of both the planet and its various tenants means that any solution for the ills of one must encompass the needs of the other. And this also governs the mind-body connection as well. A good example here is the symbiotic relationship between the biodiversity of organisms living in and on our bodies, our mental well-being, and how this influences both our skin and general health. This is forming a more interconnected concept of skincare, body care, and wellness. I'm seeing a much more involved consumer interest in their skin barrier function, as we spoke about before, the study of psychodermatology, and an evolution in pre, post, and probiotics in a process I call rewilding the biome. Life is getting busier. People who embraced a more involved and ritualistic beauty regime as their form of coping during lockdowns will filter out the most meaningful products and rituals they want to retain to get as their days get fuller. Cue the rise of micro treatments, mini facials, microdosing actives, and parallel treatments, but also spirit boosters. Whether through an anti-anxiety CBD infused body oil, happiness acupressure ear seeds, Reiki blue light protection face mist, or energy boosting transdermal vitamin patches, of which I am wearing one today. Consumers across the generations are looking to infuse emotional support into the products they buy. I call this emo beauty. Beauty is no longer just about how we look. It's increasingly about projecting a state of elevated wellness, which has evolved from Insta status symbol to social necessity. And this is what I call health signaling. From a hearty hiking glow to exuding positive vibes to honing the appearance of the expensively facialed, the new beauty currency is all about exuding health from within. And lastly, we have nostalgia. Collective trauma always leads to periods of nostalgia as people hark back to sepia tinted times and borrow from their cultural language to bring associations of comfort, unencumbered fun, and lightness of being. So I just wanted to ask, to start off, you guys, what has been your favorite nostalgic throwback trend from the last 6 months? Starting with Sharmadean.
That's super easy because I'm wearing it now. It's the color brown. I've got like a brown eyeshadow on. I've been buying brown lipsticks, or rather looking for the perfect brown lipstick. And yeah, I just think when I see like a darky, reddy, chocolatey brown in makeup, it really makes me think of like 1999 and like music videos, and it's definitely nostalgic vibes that I'm loving this trend everywhere, and then also Maddie's bringing back the lip liner again in Euphoria season 2, so it's definitely brown everywhere.
Awesome. Antonia.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, being on TikTok every day, nostalgia is like the buzzword at the moment. I think there's been 25 billion views just of the hashtag nostalgia. And Gen Z particularly seem really obsessed with nostalgia and that informing what they're wearing, what they're putting on their faces. For me, I've been really influenced by Matilda Djerf. So it's all about the curtain bangs and kind of like 70s beauty, brown, like Sharmadean said, so, glossy lips, healthy skin. That has been my kind of favorite throwback, but there's so many amazing ones. I mean, Y2K is having a huge moment, isn't it? With like that whole kind of side of things, press on nails, scrunchies, blue eyeshadow, really coming back on the platform as well. I'm not sure I'm going to adopt that one.
I am all over that one for you, don't you worry.
But there's so much. Yeah, really exciting at the moment.
Awesome. And Mark?
I think it's, I'm quite enjoying what's going on with the fashion. I mean, I did mention the 90s earlier, and I know Sharmadean just did as well, but some of the clothes, I'm like, oh my God, I might dust off my naff jacket and God knows what else from those days and somehow seem cool again. But I'm quite enjoying reminiscing, I have to say.
Yeah, it is really funny. I've seen a certain kind of resurgence in that whole meta bimbo vibe as well, which is quite interesting, something I'd never thought I'd see again. So Sharmadean, what of the more ritualistic lockdown habits do you think consumers will be taking into 22?
I think it's funny because lockdown in its purest sense, like the first wave of lockdown, imagine that we've got waves of lockdown, right? I remember spending so much time doing beauty treatments on myself, partially out of boredom, and partially because I just couldn't handle not having them. Putting my own eyelashes on, wouldn't advise at home, obviously, if you're not professional. Doing my own hair, experimenting, even trying my own nails, sticking on nails. But it's now been 2 years since that first wave of trying things out myself. And what we refer to is trading up trading down or swapping out. So there might be a case where you might dial down things that you're using less of. So for example, I used to religiously get my lashes done like every 3-4 weeks, but now I'm not going to, so I'm actually trading that down. But then I've actually dialed my nails back up. Obviously that's my ritualistic home. So I'm really excited to like get my nails done every 3 weeks without fail again. And we would say that's like trading up. But then actually, I'm really interested in people who are just swapping things out completely. So, you know, someone might have gone tanning regularly, realized that actually it's not essential for them, and swapping it out for a completely different treatment. Because while you know, there's always more beauty and there's always more products to do, people's budgets don't always accommodate an increasing amount of services and products. So what they're doing is swapping them out. So yeah, I would say that for me and what I'm seeing in kind of our audience is not that anyone is doing nothing or everyone's doing more. It's that actually there's this constant flux of products and services that are moving around in terms of someone's consumption habits.
And do you think that this is kind of that schizophrenic shopper that you're talking about? So really investing in one area and saving money in others. Do you see that sort of swapping to different types of areas, or is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's schizophrenic. I would call it changing needs. So if you were going to the office every single day and doing client meetings, then of course you're going to like need a blow dry all the time. You know, your replenishment of your skincare and makeup is going to be more frequent. But now so many people, I know my team are almost all 100% remote, you know, and then we've got a few people who are 2 or 3 days a week, and then we've got a few people who are still excited to do client meetings and go to restaurants. It's just like the lifestyle changes that we've seen over the last 2 years has resulted in shifting needs. So are you really going to get a leg wax all the time if no one ever sees your bottom half? You don't need that. Do you know what I mean? But one thing that never ever goes out of fashion is people's faces. So I definitely don't think there's going to be any downturn in skincare, makeup, etc.
No. But there's definitely, I think the habit of moving online is one that is just going to continue to grow and grow. Antonia, how do you think that mass consumer migration is going to affect our beauty habits in the future, and how we get more used to this as a sort of business as usual?
Hugely. I mean, what we've seen on TikTok particularly is this dissemination of information and expert voices joining the platform. So dermatologists, key opinion leaders, you know, people like DermDoc is one of our biggest beauty influencers, and he's a medical professional. So what they're doing is creating a really hyper-informed, discerning customer who understands skincare concerns, ingredients, what to be using together, what to avoid. So we're really seeing this movement towards function over form. So kind of gone are the days of pretty millennial pink packaging and that kind of being what consumers are buying into. Now they're buying into efficacious products and really kind of leaning into that function over form piece. So we're seeing this across the board. I think it's why brands like Inkey have done so well on TikTok. I know Mark can speak to that in more detail, but this ingredient-led skincare, but whereby the audience really understands how to use it, which maybe was missing a few years ago. We're really seeing this kind of super empowered, kind of hyper discerning customer coming through. And I think that's really driven by the digital landscape at the moment.
Yeah, I think it massively shifted, you know, when the pandemic hit. And all we can ever do is spread knowledge. So it just forced us to make sure that we give a scale of knowledge that people can choose where they want to enter. Do they want to just know basics, or do they want to just have bite-sized stuff on the likes of TikTok and Instagram and wherever? Or do they want to go deep on panels like this and really kind of lean into certain subject topics? But I mean, how that plays out and where they shop is anyone's guess at the moment. I think, you know, everyone is trying to figure out, oh, shall I shop at home? I'm a bit bored. Maybe I want to go out, and actually it's less convenient. Maybe I'll come back at home. I think we're all trying to navigate that hybrid world. And I think rule number one still applies, and it applied pre-pandemic, mid-pandemic, and post-pandemic. It's be where the consumers are, give them a choice of what they want to engage with or download, and make life as convenient as possible for them along the way. At least that's our hypothesis. We'll see how it plays out.
And one of the things that consumers are most engaged with, I think, from the point of view of the content that we're putting out, is the sustainability question. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to get right, especially at the moment. I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about your journey, Mark, with sustainability, but kind of looking at it sort of with the journey, like how the wider industry can get better.
Yeah, I think everyone's been on one, and everyone is conscious of it and hyper conscious, and it's no longer something that people see as a nice to have anymore. I think they genuinely see it as kind of table stakes. We've done two things. Obviously, we've done a big collaboration with Hiram, Skincare by Hiram, who has been a very loud voice when it comes to this area. And we started collaborating with him, believe it or not, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and started to do something on his range alongside us, churning over what we do and being better and better. But when you mirror that with supply chains, consumer expectations rising, etc., it has been a really complex problem. And where we got to on it all was, it really needs every single part of the beauty ecosystem to lean in. Suppliers, for a start, a lot of them supply big guys as well as indie brands like us, but suppliers have not been easily geared up to kind of answer the call of the big boss, as Lex said earlier in the call. Their systems, their processes, their traceability is old and defunct. And so there isn't that transparency that some brands like ours and others are really requiring and call for, and some big guys still can't get that right. Manufacturers, how we put stuff together, how we make it as simple and easy as possible for consumers to understand how to then recycle is again a challenge. And the final point, and it's maybe a controversial one, is then consumers, because consumers want continually the moon on the stick, and why wouldn't they? They are the ultimate boss. But there is considerable difference between putting something in front of someone that's done as cheaply as possible, and what that costs the earth and its kind of inhabitants, versus something that's been as mindful and as thoughtful as possible, and what that price differential is. And I think we all need to be prepared to be better, but that does come at a financial cost ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that I consider all the time, is this concept of what luxury is. And I think that growing concept for me is changing from the whiz bang kind of NASA style packaging, and moving into a clear conscience as a consumer. But I absolutely recognize that to have 100% circular brands, from an eco standpoint, it costs a hell of a lot of money, and people have kind of come to this with food. They've really grasped that concept with food, but actually it's not there yet with beauty. I think I'd add another level to that, and that's regulation from governments, because without that you don't get that whole it doesn't level the playing field unless you do that. I think one thing that we're going to see a lot more of in this space is brand allyship and competitor collaborations. They're going to become a lot more commonplace over the coming months and years, as this definitely drives effective, positive change at a larger scale. I just wanted to ask you, Sharmadean, or anyone on the panel, actually, have you seen any really nice examples of this happening?
I think collaboration is always classy. That's my vibe on it. And I think that like Mark outlined, there is such a huge issue in terms of sustainability from start to finish. Like, collaboration allows people to leverage scale, right? And I feel like the more that brands get together, say, actually, this is the way that we do things. Let's share our knowledge and let's work together because we have expertise in this and you have expertise in that. You know, typically it'd be manufacturing versus brand, or there might be huge social followings with younger indie brands, but they might not have access to the things that they need to be more eco-friendly. I always think that that's really interesting. But I can't think right now of one direct competitive collaboration. And I did take a look around. Lex, what are you thinking that you think?
The first one that I saw actually is some of the bigger groups are collaborating, like L'Oreal, Unilever, around definitions within beauty. And especially in the green space. Also seeing a bunch of brands collaborating on packaging as well. And it was We Are Allies, I think was the hashtag that they were doing that. But I've seen it in fashion as well, to try and get a bit more circularity in the supply chain too, with Richemont, LVMH, the ultimate enemies, actually kind of working together on fashion supply chains as well. I totally agree with what you said. It's classy, but I think it's also the most efficient way to make this happen. It's just bloody hard.
I think one of the standardization of language is really important for everything, but also law. I think the biggest thing that changes things is law. It's like having gender pay gap reporting forces people to close the gender pay gap. I think that governments actually have a responsibility to do more, which, as we know from the various Netflix documentaries out there, they don't want to do, because they're usually getting paid by the same large organizations that are, causing the damage. I think a lot has been talked about in terms of packaging and recyclables, but we wrote a trend report a couple of years ago called Beyond Beauty in collaboration with Digital Fairy. And one of the things that we talked about a lot in that report was blue beauty and the need to use less water or do less beauty. And I think that, again, like when you look at what's going on in terms of water shortages and marine life damage, it can sometimes feel insurmountable, like there's so much to do. So I always think, well, where do you start? And I personally think that you can start by making more conscious choices and less choices. So rather than choosing lots and lots and lots and lots of products, finding out here's what works for me, being committed and loyal to those brands, and then putting pressure on those brands to do more in terms of refillables, co-creation and that type of thing. So, you said in the beginning about what luxury means to you. What luxury means to me is less things of higher quality. Yeah. I can feel truly, truly, it's never you feel completely conscious, right? Like a clear conscience, but where I feel some sort of conscious as to what I'm purchasing,
Yeah, it's true. I call it granny core. It's basically purchasing like your granny did.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my granny would buy a really nice winter coat like once a decade, and that was her winter coat, and it was, she'd invest in it and it would be so well put together that it would last that time. It just became really uncool to do that, to be wearing the same coat again and again. But I think that's coming back. I think the granification of consumption is coming back. So I'm kind of all for that as a trend. I wanted to kind of move on to how we're consuming beauty content, and speaking to you, Antonia, thinking about how the different dominant social media platforms have in their time changed the beauty industry. 2010 to 15, we had YouTube, who really kind of brought the age of indie beauty and indie brands to the fore. And then 15 to 20, Instagram turned makeup into the dominant category. Now, I know you don't call TikTok a social media platform. This is a content platform, but how do you think that as a growing dominant platform will shape beauty's next phase?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. We call it an entertainment platform rather than social media. So at its core, it's inviting people to engage with brands and creators in a different way to how they ever have done before. We are based off a really unique algorithm. So it's a content graph rather than a social graph. And what that means is that you don't need any followers to go viral and for your content to be seen really widely. So what that's done is really democratized beauty and leveled the playing field and allowed so many new brands to kind of punch above their weight, reach new audiences. Brands have been created purely off the platform. So indie brands like Pink Salad, lip glosses, you know, they're literally being created from the platform. But we've also spawned this new generation of beauty creators and will continue to do so. And that's because people literally can blow up within a week because it's all based on kind of quality of content versus quantity of followers. So what we've seen, I think back to kind of your point around microdosing, the way that the platform works is that we allow content up to 3 minutes in length. The sweet spot is usually around kind of 25 seconds. So we're seeing this microdosing of content almost, yeah, top tip for you there. But we're seeing this short snackable content that people can really engage with quickly. And we know that they're spending longer than some streaming platforms on TikTok. So they're spending longer watching TikTok than they are, you know, watching TV in many ways. So that's really kind of changed the landscape and has leveled the playing field. I think definitely the creator piece and the whole new generation of beauty creators that we are seeing and will continue to see is really exciting. And we're seeing brands lean into that. Revolution Beauty did a big partnership with us last year. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, called Creator Revolution. And it was to find the next big name in the industry, and they're creating a product line with that creator. It went on for kind of 8 months, the whole process. So we're also seeing brands use TikTok almost as an incubator for new talent as well. So there's a lot of different strands to it, but I think definitely the kind of edutainment that we're seeing within beauty is really interesting. But also we're such a place for experimentation and authenticity and people to try out new trends and kind of connect with new tribes and learn on TikTok as well, which is a huge trend that we're seeing. So I think it will continue. Definitely commerce is a huge focus for the platform as well. So the concept of community commerce and being able to shop directly from creators and that kind of thing within the app. So it's a closed loop solution. So there'll be a lot more happening there. But yeah, I think it's really exciting for the industry as a whole. I mean, more authenticity and diversity is a really good thing. And I think it was needed. So yeah.
Are the readers, are the watchers getting older? Are you seeing a broad age group?
Yeah, so it's a really common misconception that we're just Gen Z and teenagers. We did a report with Kantar recently, and actually 67% of the global audience is over 25. So we are seeing the platform kind of aging up. We're still powered by that Gen Z energy, but we are seeing a much wider demographic join the platform, and that's reflected in our creators as well, that have got, you know, really huge followings, particularly in the dermatology space and the kind of key opinion leader space there. So yeah, we are seeing it really age up.
We see that as a brand, Antonia, actually. And, you know, thank you as a brand for doing exactly what you said. And you could mention YouTube, you know, you shouldn't be scared of saying you're doing well versus YouTube.
Not allowed.
You can say it, Mark.
No, that's true. But I think, you know, we've really leaned into you guys on TikTok because the consumer was there and looking for proper, decent content. And that kind of really, you know, we really zeroed in on that and made sure that where we could be supportive, and that's of, you know, what would be called nano influencers and what have you, we would treat them the same as the big guys like Hiram, who we've got a relationship with. But having a equal playing field to develop content and then them being rewarded for their output, you know, was a key part of how I think we had like 500 million views with you guys last year on TikTok, which, you know, we would never be able to get that kind of reach against the big guys. We just wouldn't, unless we had a platform like that to kind of spread our knowledge to everyone. So yeah, kudos to you and what you guys do there.
Have you seen, like, on your journey through, I mean, you interact with your customers a lot, like, have you seen anything really interesting trends wise bubbling out of that interaction?
Yeah, lots. So I think we're talking a lot more about connectivity and how long people stick with us, and how sticky our kind of relationship is with people. So they can contact us across multiple platforms. Every single platform we're on or on our website. And there is, I say a small number, but we've got maybe 60, 70,000 people that regularly come and talk to us. And whilst a lot of the time the conversation early days is the classic skincare or hair care stuff, they're getting to know the team now. And so there's a lot more kind of, oh, just having a rubbish day, but just wanted to reach out to you guys and see how, like, it's almost like forming a bit more of their life and becoming part of their social circle, or us on a real personal level, kind of giving them some form of connection back. And we kind of got that during pandemic where people were at home, but I think now people are switching to hybrid. People are still trying to figure life out, and just because people are in the office again doesn't mean people aren't any less lonely than they maybe would have been during the pandemic, and still wanting to be part of a community that has very similar values and principles of themselves is really has gone nowhere. And it's probably been made more important given that, and yet another period of change that we're going to be in as we kind of start to swing back to a new normal, whatever that looks like.
Have you seen the same kind of thing, Sharmadean, through your interactions?
Yeah, in terms of your thoughts on like content and platforms, I'm really excited about this kind of bridge that we're having between live streaming and gaming and the metaverse, because what we're seeing a lot is that people are in our stat world community are obsessed with NFTs and crypto and the metaverse, and essentially this layer of information that they feel locked out of. And it's a bit like what both Antonia and Mark said about the democratization of information. And what we're seeing is that there is no real, there are tiny little pockets of places that talk about the metaverse for women and for beauty. And this is something that I dipped my toe in 5 years ago when we did a VR experience for nails. And the reason I did that was because in 2016, when I think Facebook had just bought Oculus or something, and everyone was really excited about VR. And I was excited, tech has always been in my core. Every single VR experience was shooting or golf or a very masculine-led technology experience. And then I was thinking, well, I really want to use this tech, but I don't want to shoot or play golf. We're going to build a VR thing. And that's what we did. And it was amazing. It was just 5 years too early. If we built that now, it would have been game changing. So I'm really interested in terms of beauty content creators having the tools and the technology to basically have an involvement and bring their skills over to the metaverse, whether that is through digital artwork with NFTs or with streaming on Twitch, which is huge for beauty, and or it might be designing avatars and skins and products in the my son's obsessed with Fortnite and Roblox, and he actually informs me of things that are happening in Fortnite or Roblox, or the fact that Gucci will be in a game. You can buy Gucci gear in a game. Well, what would it be like to buy beauty products in a game and change your skin over time, or to design your own, with Animal Crossing and Among Us? There are so many different designs that you can have for your faces now. I think that while there are so many problems still in the real world, I don't want women in particular and beauty content creators to be left out of the huge opportunities that are to be found by creating content in the digital realm.
Yeah, and I think both of you made that point of that connection with brands, and I guess things have changed so much in the structure of our society. So brands have taken on a different meaning for people. That there isn't quite the same kind of everybody does it, strong community feeling, that whether it was around a religion or a village or kind of shared in real life experiences, like we've been forced into this metaverse, or it's been speeded up much faster than it would have done, and it gives brands the chance to create universes, and it's just it feels very similar to when I was first launching Cult Beauty, and that whole kind of the online space of e-commerce. It was like everyone's going, oh, sorry,
you literally called it Cult Beauty. Like the word cult is exactly that replacement of religion, you know. Beauty is church, just like Mark was saying, to many people who are coming to beauty, not just for the products themselves, but for the church. And you literally named it, which is hilarious.
I know, my mum was so pissed off. She was like, darling, can you just put something else? Do really does it have to be cult? I was like, yeah, it has to be cult, mum. It has to be. I'm not, there isn't. It's like, it's the name that it needs to be for this shop. But yeah, no, I got a lot of grief on that one. I wanted to think, I mean, the current situation that brands and shoppers in the UK, or actually all over the world, are facing with all of these supply chain issues, with Brexit, with brands. I mean, it's just impossible to kind of actually keep the supply chain running smoothly. Mark, how do you think that's going to affect shopper behavior?
Yeah, so and if you have or are a Inkey List shopper and we haven't been available on your favorite product over the last 2 years, we do apologize vehemently, but it's really tough, because we were talking about sustainability earlier as well, and that's just another level to add into the mix. The reality is it's really, really difficult to create stuff now, and I think we got ahead of it early in kind of, we were buying bits and pieces from all over the shop, but very early we had to bring stuff nearer. And actually, you know, a lot of the time, what's good for business is good for the consumer and is what is good for the planet. It's just making sure they all align at the same time is probably the hardest thing. And so a number of things. So looking at in-region sourcing, switching out suppliers, making sure we're making good choices. You know, we had a blank sheet of paper when we did Selfless by Hiram, but every single decision there was genuinely, every single ingredient that we had, every single supplier we asked is this a selfless decision? I.e., are we going to be doing more good than bad in using that supplier or that ingredient? And that's played out across both of our businesses as we transitioned together until its launch last year. And we've taken that approach onwards. Is it difficult? Yep. Is it going to get harder? Yep. You know, as everyone can see in the papers, every single cost that you can imagine is only going one way. And that just creates pressure. You know, that means we have to pay our people more to kind of deliver the business, the brand, and the edutainment on their various platforms as well. And it's making sure you get the balance right. And I think my most common used phrase in the last 6 months is probably one that we've used from the start, which is the trouble with being transparent is you've got to be transparent. If there's a problem, you got to call it. If you're spreading knowledge, do it transparently and don't make up some BS. And if there are problems in the supply chain, call it. You know, many times we've had to go on social media and say, guys, we physically can't get a hold of this. If you put your name here, here, and here, we'll try and get you one as soon as possible on a, you know, in most circumstances free for the kind of inconvenience. But it's not easy, and I don't think it's going to be solved. All we're trying to do is, you know, make things as local as possible. Be crystal clear. And we publish a report every 6 months that talks about the impact that we have on people and planet against targeted goals, and be clear on how we are getting better in a very unambiguous way, and always backed up by kind of science and facts. That's our take on the world. I think that's why I think Antonia said it earlier, I think people are done with the BS. The days that retailers were saying to me, just make up and Lex, you and I love a made up name, But, you know, in the past, retailers would be saying, can't you just make up a name and make it kind of sound really zhuzhy? Those days are gone, and people just want facts, figures. What's it going to do for me or not? Is it right for me or not? Don't make me spend my money where if I don't need to spend my money, and then everyone walks away happy. But how that little product gets there is no mean feat.
I think that's probably the most polite sentence I've ever heard you say, BS.
I know. I was told to stop the swearing on panels like this.
Really? Oh, I quite like the swearing. Sorry, moving on to Antonia. How do you see that affecting people kind of in the way that they are talking about brands? And
in terms of sustainability?
No, actually, in terms of just what's happening, you know, in our economic environment with all the supply chain issues we're having. I mean, continuity of product is becoming really difficult to, you know, I'm buying like 3 of my favorite thing anytime that I see that it's there, just because I'm not sure it's going to still be there.
Of course. I mean, we've seen it show up in so many ways. The first one being kind of that community feel that we were talking about, of telling each other if they found the product. So we've seen a lot of people physically filming themselves in store saying, oh, I found my oat cleansing balm, you know, that it's been out of stock for 6 months, and look, they've got it in St. Paul's boots, go down and get it. That's one way. So actually just helping each other out and making content around what is quite a mundane experience of going in store. We saw, you know, we've had this huge kind of phenomenon of TikTok made me buy it. So reinvigorating products that maybe came out 10 years ago, thinking like the L'Oreal telescopic mascara, that is not a new launch, but you could not get that for love nor money, purely because it kind of trended on the platform.
Oh, Tilbury as well, she's been
the beauty light ones still out of stock, and people are making content around dupes for them from other brands and that kind of thing. But even with Hiram, before Mark and Colette partnered with him, there was so much content around CeraVe and Inkey, and people going in store, particularly in the US, being like, this is insane, there's no product, it's completely sold out, and filming that experience. So I think that's kind of a weird behavior that we're now seeing of filming those in-store moments. But we are seeing a slightly schizophrenic shopper. I think we've kind of maybe different from Sharmadean in that for treatments, that's not going to change. But when it comes to buying habits, we are seeing those big splurge moments happening on the platform as well. So, you know, it could be a YSL 3D lipstick printer that costs $300, and people are buying that for kind of no good reason, and then filming themselves using it. Or really expensive fragrances, just to have that kind of splurge moment, and you know, filming themselves unboxing it, using it, and getting the community kind of interacting around it too, and actually supporting one another. It's quite a nice thing, rather than it being a kind of humble brag moment. It's become a, look, I've worked really hard and bought this, isn't it cool? So that's something that we're seeing a lot of as well. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place at the moment.
It's a really interesting evolution, like supporting that concept of luxury we were talking about, Sharmadean, where are people embracing that old school way of buying, of consuming, of really investing into the things that they really, really love. I think in the particular area, whether it's a beauty tool, or actually kind of one of those bigger buys from a sort of luxury fragrance point of view. So it's kind of, that's super positive.
I think I am of an older internet generation. Like, I've been on the internet since since the internet's been around, basically. And I just wouldn't share new purchases in that way, because it's like, I'm not of that generation or that demographic. But to your point on investing in the brands that you love, I think it's really interesting. You know, our community is very different. It's really small and niche, and there is no product. I no longer have a physical product, and I don't really have a service either. There is this whole thing that our community is all about buying each other's products, which I find quite interesting. So it's almost like, by joining the Stack community, you almost have a ready-made client base if you're wanting to launch something. And I noticed really early on that a lot of people were joining us to kind of find their early adopters or find their first like 100 customers, or, you know, for their independent beauty brands or homeware brands or whatever it is. But actually we've had and this is quite left field for this conversation, we've had a lot of requests for people to angel invest in these brands as well. And I think there's something to be said about owning the brands that you consume all of the time. So, you know, with the Stack World, we just closed a small funding round. We actually allowed members to invest if they wanted to as angels. And I was really surprised that, you know, almost 25 of our members invested their cash into the Stack World. And I'd love to see more brands do that and almost form like an area of like a co-op or a partnership, like John Lewis style, whereby not only are you contributing to the brand with your insights, with your comments, with your likes, with your content, but actually you own equity in it. And this is that for me has been important over the last 10 years, is trying to change the mindset of all of these women who are constantly consuming and buying and sharing. I'm like, why would you share for free? Like, that to me is mad. I would never, ever, you know, be randomly just giving my platform away to brands when I have no stake in that brand. I think it's like we're in a really interesting time when with the platforms that are available, with the access to technology, with the democratization of knowledge, of a face, of a voice, you have to be very discerning about how you're going to use that. And I think that when you're 13 and you start supporting your favorite brand, it's really exciting when they reply. You're like, oh my God, you know, I tagged this brand in my, you know, to my 200 followers from my school, and the brand replied, and oh my God, look, this brand actually replied. Or, you know, I love when kids or adults actually screenshot that their favorite hero is following them, like, oh my God, this person's following me. But then over time, imagine if you're 13 and you do that, you'll get to a point when you're like, hang on, I'm not being paid to do it. So then you'll want like brand influencer money. So you're going to be like, okay, so now I'm an influencer, I'm going to get paid to promote it. And then a few years later, you're going to be like 25 and wanting to buy a house and thinking, hang on a minute, this brand's now worth 100 mil. I don't have a stake in it. I've essentially helped this brand grow their valuation. And now this brand that I've supported from launch is worth 100 million and it IPOs, for example, like Olaplex, and I don't own it. So I just think that, you know, my message for beauty consumers is to wise up to your own personal individual platforms.
That's a very good point. I mean, there are a few platforms out there helping people monetize their platforms, but it's still quite early days on that. And the micro influencer environment of actually, I mean, not just monetizing your personal followers, but also your data. And you know, there's a huge potential earning ability to just your behavioral data online and actually owning that. But it's still very much in its infancy as a concept. And I know that we have the kind of the group funding of things starting to happen more and more, but it's not something that's happened loads in beauty.
I think beauty IPOs are really exciting, actually. Like the idea that a beauty brand could be on a public company, as opposed to waiting to get bought by Estee or L'Oreal or any of those big players, is so exciting. But how much more exciting would it be if when you IPO, your first 100,000 customers also got a little check in the post, you know, for supporting you. So it's just, I'd love to see more brands think about how they can distribute equity amongst their customers, no matter how small it is.
It's a deeply innovative point. I absolutely agree. Now, I want everyone to think about if they've got any questions to ask the panel, but I have one last question for you guys. 2021 held so much promise, but didn't deliver the emancipation from lockdown that we all really bloody needed. Our collective cultural pressure valve is due an explosion this summer. How do you think that's going to manifest?
I think it started. I think everyone had a Christmas this year. They probably spent more money on presents and going out and family than they would have dreamed in years gone by. And, you know, with ever more freedom, travel looking a bit more stable this spring, summer, I think everyone's going to go mad, and fair play to anyone who chooses to do so. The impact on beauty, I think, could be quite interesting. And you know, Lex, I know we talk about our crystal balls, but I'm looking into it and going, Christ, you know, there could be multiple versions of the universe going on in that crystal ball, because, you know, there's also some tax rises on the way, there's price hikes on the way, and I think and consumer behavior and consumer spending is just going to split across lots of different things. And I think that's why I kind of subscribe to, you know, the potential return of that schizophrenic shopper, because people are going to have non-beauty things that they are going to put right up there in terms of their wish list in 2022. And then I think they are going to be really cutthroat about beauty products or services that they're going to either do or not do. And even within that, they're going to treat themselves on one end and maybe, you know, make sure that they try to change their value proposition at the other end to make sure that they can make themselves the best that they can be, but not limit their lifestyle in any which way. Bring on 22.
Yeah, totally. And I think we're going to naturally see cosmetics bounce back. You know, it's been a couple of years of decline in sales there. People not been, you know, we've had nowhere to go other than looking at ourselves in a Zoom camera. So that's naturally going to bounce back, isn't it? You know, people have more opportunity to go to festivals and go on holiday and that kind of thing. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah, so that's inevitable, I think, which is great as well, because, you know, skincare has had an amazing couple of years and I think that will continue. But also maybe, you know, a bit more cosmetic love going on as well.
Yeah, I agree with Antonia. I've been buying new eyeshadows for the first time ever, just as a way to mix it up because I'm out more. But for me, I am investing heavily in wellness experiences. You know, I'm kind of a bit of a bored, stuck in the rut, boring, in that I've always loved a spa and I will always love a spa. And what I'm actually doing now is scheduling spa experiences in advance, where instead of waiting until I'm at breaking point and a bit to point of like saying everything's, you know, is there going to be a floodgates? I'm like, I don't want to wait until I'm like at breaking point. So I schedule them now regularly every month. Yeah, either a facial or a spa or something, that type of experience, because my skincare I'm never going to buy less skincare ever. I'm definitely, I agree with Mark, there are non-beauty things that will either go up or down, but for me, it's like I'm buying less clothes, and I've decided fashion for me is the thing I'm going to buy less of, not beauty or not experiences. So I'm definitely spending less on clothes, spending more on wellness experiences, looking to be wowed by new experiences such as infrared saunas and things like this. You know, I like testing things out, and yeah, I guess that's how I am going to go crazy this year. Not really crazy, but, you know, wellness.
It's interesting what you're talking about with the wellness piece. I think the concept of pleasure and how we define pleasure is changing, especially as Brits, because the word pleasure has always been a bit of a dirty word almost. It's a whole naughty pleasure, but actually the rebranding of pleasure as a wellness act is something that I think is changing at the moment. And allowing yourself pleasure, giving yourself pleasure, allowing yourself to not feel like it's a guilty pleasure, I think is an evolution in our minds, and it's something that people are going to be jumping on, calling it wellness.
I think the best, my favorite thing to come out of the pandemic for our industry is the fact that, to me, it's all under beauty. So it's like wellness and mental health and diet and what's going inside. It's like all under beauty. You know, people might say it's all under wellness or all under self-care, but whatever it is, I think the pandemic has allowed people to not see it as an indulgence. Actually, I need this to function. And that's the most exciting thing for me, is that you can be like, do you know what, it's 2:00. I am going to get a massage actually, because I need it, because I'm sitting on my desk for 16 hours a day. So yeah.
Yeah, too bloody right. We've had a question come through, somebody asking, how are you conscious of, or how do you prevent greenwashing and wellness washing? It's not aimed at anyone in particular. Does anyone want to jump on this?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. So there were, particularly when we launched Selfless by Hiram, you know, we had the word greenwashing come through in terms of communications to us. And so I do think there is quite a bit about, I think, and I'm pretty simple. I think as long as you are clear, crystal clear on what you are doing, and brands are clear what they are doing and how they are doing it, you can't ask much more from that. I think what consumers have right to be fearful of is where they don't hear anything. And I think, Lex, you and I were talking about authenticity, and ultimately it comes down to values versus veneer. And, you know, sustainability is on the rise, and like we said earlier, is now you have to have, it's table stakes versus a nice to have. And so with that, you know, you will get some brands, not just in beauty, but in a lot of, you know, verticals, that will do one thing, and they might do that one thing once a quarter, once a year, whatever. I think where consumers need to smarten up and be aware of is who does what they want to hear consistently. Because if you are hearing from a brand consistently, whether it's about inclusivity, whether it's about transparency, sustainability, no matter what, if they are consistent with it and they are unmistakably clear on their view and how they do it, then the consumer has got a great choice to be massively part of that branding community, or say no thanks very much and move on and forget they exist. That's kind of how we play it out here at the Inkey List.
I've got a screenshot that I took that I have on my desktop. 7 signs of greenwashing. 1, not proving it. 2, using vague language. 3, suggestive design. 4, speaking in jargon. 5, spotlighting only the good. We've all done it. Making your own standard is 6, and 7 is not being held to account. And you've talked pretty much through all of those into the positive side of things. I have it there because it's really, really important that we never fall into that. But it's a good little guide to question yourself about brands. Most of the time it's the hair on the back of your neck that tells you if a brand is kosher or not. Like, it really is. Like, you can feel it. Our consumers are becoming so, they're not just hyper informed, but also incredibly intuitive after kind of the last few decades of marketing that's been created to kind of hit your pleasure points more than to actually have meaning or ethos with the brand. So meaning and ethos is really the future of everything in beauty, really. If you want to gather a tribe, you have to really earn it.
Great.
Right, well, thank you guys. Thank you for being an utterly fantastic panel. Thank you for everybody who has joined us on our journey through this afternoon. I hope the content's been interesting to you. It's been recorded. We'll be pushing it out on the channel that must not be named at the moment.
Let you off.
YouTube. Coffee YouTube channel. And as soon as you do long form TikTok, we will do that too.
You'll be the first person to know.
Please. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us in this day. It's been really, really fun, and I look forward to doing this again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lex. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.